Hi, Wizard here once again. I'm going to be talking you through some Red Mist adventures. This video is going to focus on the hero scroll, what the attributes mean and how to use them. Okay, right, so here we've got the hero scroll for Folan Shadowblades and Faust on his ally side. Now you can flip that and you're going to see that on the reverse side we've got Faust and his hero scroll side, which has got slightly better attributes. Now, for the purposes of the video, we are going to use the pip dice because it'll be easier for you if you don't have a set of the action dice. So if you're using action dice, it means that it's a few months down the line and we have these readily available somewhere for you, which is definitely the plan. But at the moment, we're going to be using pip dice and it's all easy enough. So at the start of the round, you're going to roll your actions for Folan, and we've got 3 5s and 6s, so that's going to be 3 combat results. And we've got a 4, and a 3 and a 4 would be an interact, a 2 would be a class, and a 1 would be an enemy, as discussed in the video on converting the action dice to pips. Okay, in this case, it's just what the pips mean and where they correlate to the actions, of course. So we've got 3 combats, we've got 1 interact. That's what we've got for this round. So just roll another lot as if perhaps we were going to activate Faust. We're not, but that would be a 3 and a 4 would both be interacts. So you'd have a 2 in the interacts, and that would be 2 enemy actions. So Faust would have to clear those before he can start acting. And he'd have a number of options which we'll go through when we get to it. So you're going to see on this right hand column you've got combat, interact, class, dodge and souls. You get soul every time you kill something, so you can start to dial that up. Souls can be spent to reroll tests, attacks, or you can spend a soul to restore 2 in your attribute should they be damaged. If you don't use an action on a turn, so for example, perhaps Folan spends this round battering something and hasn't got a use for the interact action, so he decides that he's going to convert that to a dodge. So that would go into dodge, and he would be finished after he's made 3 attacks. Now, what's the benefit of having a dodge? If you get attacked between the end of your activation and the start of your next, you can use that dodge to make an agility test. He's got 3 in agility, and Folan will need a 6 to avoid harm. So, and not all harm. A 6 will negate 1 damage. So in this instance, he would have spent his dodge, but still taken the wound. Now, there are items of gear that will be available in the game, and there will be cards that will be available in the game down the line, ways in which Folan can develop so that he can increase his odds for dodging and things like that. But he could of course use multiple dodges. He might have put 2 in dodge, and he can spend as many as he wants when he gets attacked. So if he say took 2 damage and made that roll, you would then go, right, I'm going to dial that down, I've spent 1 of my dodges. You might think, well, 2 damage now or 2 damage later, I might as well spend the dodge. So you spend the second dodge on the same attack, still taking the hit. So that is an example of some really ineffective dodging. Right. So now you understand that you can spend any action and convert it to a dodge. Now, on this left column, we've got the attributes of faith, will, metal, might, and agility. There is another attribute, which is health, which is to the left of the name. And then finally, the number to the right of the name is the number of action dice that you roll for that hero. So you'll see that on the Faust and Folan have both got 4. But if you were playing Faust as an ally, he's only got 3 action dice. He's also got slightly lower attributes. He also doesn't have to pay the cost of a class action to use his vampiric bite, but we'll get to that. So there's a little bit of swings and roundabouts there. There's some benefits to having him as an ally. So each character's also got a sort of like a passive and an active ability. The passive abilities tend to be ones that do not have a cost attached to them. So for example, Folan's is Death Mark. He will add 1 damage to attacks against a chosen enemy per round. Faust's is Charge. So after moving and spending an attack action or combat action, or after moving and then spending an interact action, He can then test agility to push an enemy 1 square away for every success he generates on the dice. Folan's active ability is Call on the Gods. So when Falan spends a faith, he can add 1 success to his next test or attack. We'll talk through that in just a moment. And then Faust's active ability is the Vampiric Bite. So Faust can spend a class action to gain vampiric damage on his next attack. That's exactly what you think it's going to be, I suspect. So if he does 2 damage to something and he has got Vampiric Bite in effect, then he will gain 2 health. Okay, so the attributes are obviously a finite resource. So when Folan's going to be calling on the gods and spending his faith starts out as 4. So if he did that on the first round, his faith's going to drop to 3, and then 2, and then 1. If any attribute drops to 0, you go into Twilight and you're eliminated from play. So obviously you do want to be careful about how you spend that resource. But obviously if he's going about and he's killing some things and he's regenerating, restoring attributes by spending souls, then he can compensate and keep that in effect and keep it going. So that's all a part of obviously how you approach playing the game. Folan's got 4 health and Faust has got 5. The health of Faust as an ally is also 5. Let's look at this as if we were going to be playing this in solo. So if both heroes or both characters in play were called upon to make a will test, the number that you have in your attribute is the number of dice that you will roll in that test. So for example, Falan has 3 will and Faust in his ally side has 2. So he will make his test on 3 dice. Now you're looking for combats, or you're looking for 5s and 6s as your successes in tests and attacks. So in that instance, Folan's got 1 success on that will test, and that was a lucky roll for Faust. He's got 2 successes on that will test. So when you see in the game perform will 2, you're going to be looking to get 2 successes in that will test. If it was will 3, will 4, that's how many successes that you need to get, not how many dice you roll. The dice you roll is equal to your current number in the attribute, which is again why you want to be careful when you're using Call on the Gods or a like ability, because as more heroes come into play, there will be more heroes that use various attributes to buff their tests and their attacks. So there's nothing really more complicated to it. That's how the hero scrolls work. That's what these various numbers all mean. The faith is obviously a measure of how spiritual your character is and belief in the gods. Will is fairly self-explanatory as to how willful the character is, exerting their will on their surroundings. Metal is a sort of a measure of your endurance, really, and if something's testing your metal, it's sort of like it's testing your pluck, really. So it's a bit of endurance and a little bit of courage. And you've got might, which is I suppose your strength, and then you've got agility, which is again self-explanatory. It's sort of how dexterous your character is, how nimble you are. So that explains your hero scrolls. Thanks for your time.